Stop thinking, start speaking. You understand English. That sentence alone already separates you from millions of people in the world. You understand videos. You understand movies. You understand conversations when others speak naturally. You understand instructions, emotions, jokes, tone, and intention. Yet when it's your turn to speak, everything collapses. Your mind goes blank. Your chest feels tight. Your voice disappears. And you quietly tell yourself, I understand English, but I can't speak. This belief feels true, but it is not accurate. Because the real problem is not speaking. The real problem is thinking too much before speaking. Somewhere along your English journey, you learned a dangerous habit. You learned to stop yourself before you talk. Before a single word comes out, your brain jumps in and says, wait, check, fix, be careful. You start building the sentence in your head. You check the grammar. You search for better words. You compare your accent to others. You imagine how you might sound. And in that moment, fluency dies. Because fluency does not survive inside your head. Fluency lives in motion. Native speakers do not speak because they are confident. They are confident because they speak. They don't wait for the perfect sentence. They don't translate in their head. They don't pause to judge themselves. They speak first. They adjust later. But you were trained differently. You were trained to believe that English is a test, that mistakes are dangerous, that silence is better than being wrong. So now, every time you try to speak, your brain treats it like a performance. And performance creates pressure. Pressure creates fear. Fear creates silence. This is why your English feels trapped. Not because you don't know what to say, but because you don't allow yourself to say it. Think about this carefully. If you truly could not speak English, you wouldn't even be able to think about speaking English. The fact that you can already form thoughts in English means something important. The language is already inside you. What's missing is permission. Permission to be slow. Permission to be imperfect. Permission to speak without rehearsing. Most learners believe fluency comes from thinking better sentences. It doesn't. Fluency comes from releasing control. The moment you stop trying to sound perfect, your speech becomes natural. The moment you stop monitoring every word, your voice starts flowing. But because nobody teaches this, you keep doing the opposite. You keep waiting. Waiting until you feel confident. Waiting until your grammar improves. Waiting until your accent sounds better. And that waiting becomes a prison. Because confidence does not come before speaking. Confidence comes after survival. Every fluent speaker you admire has survived. Thousands of awkward sentences. They just didn't stop. Children become fluent fast for one simple reason. They do not judge themselves. They speak nonsense. They repeat wrong words. They mix sounds. They keep talking. Adults judge everything, and judgment freezes the tongue. Right now, your biggest enemy is not English. It is your inner critic. That voice that says, "This sentence isn't good enough. You should say it better. Don't speak yet." That voice sounds smart, but it is destructive. Because communication does not require perfection. It requires presence. If someone understands you, your English worked. That's it. Grammar exists to polish speech, not to block it. You don't learn to swim by thinking about swimming. You learn by entering the water. You don't learn to drive by memorizing rules. You learn by moving the car. And you don't learn to speak by staying silent. Your mouth is not a grammar book. It is a muscle. And muscles only grow through use. Right now, your speaking muscle is weak not because you are incapable, but because you have protected it for too long. You answer with yes and no. You avoid giving opinions. You keep sentences short to escape quickly. And slowly, you start believing the lie. I'm bad at English. No, you are just underspoken. You don't need advanced vocabulary. You don't need complex grammar. You need movement. Short sentences are powerful. I think so. I'm not sure. Let me try. I don't know how to explain. These sentences keep you talking. They keep you alive in the conversation. Fluency grows from continuity, not complexity. The goal of English is not to impress people. The goal is to connect with them. Connection does not care about perfect tense. It cares about meaning. Every time you choose to speak instead of think, you weaken fear. Every time you allow an imperfect sentence to exist, you train your brain to relax. And once the brain relaxes, fluency begins. So here is the shift you must make today. Stop asking, is this correct? Start asking, can they understand me? Stop rehearsing. Start reacting. Stop translating. Start responding. Your accent does not disqualify you. Your pauses do not embarrass you. Your mistakes do not define you. Silence does. And today, you end that silence. Speak one sentence today. Not perfect. Not prepared. Just spoken. That single act is more powerful than hours of silent study. Because the moment you stop thinking and start speaking, English stops being a fear and starts becoming your voice. Segment 2. The real reason you freeze. When you try to speak English. When you try to speak English and your mind suddenly goes empty, it feels confusing and frustrating. Just a moment ago, you were thinking clearly. You knew what you wanted to say. And then, as soon as it becomes your turn to speak, everything disappears. Words vanish, thoughts scatter. Your voice feels stuck somewhere inside your chest. Most learners believe this happens because their English is weak. They assume they lack vocabulary, grammar, or intelligence. But that explanation is too simple and completely wrong. What is really happening has nothing to do with language skill. It has everything to do with how your brain reacts to perceived danger. Your brain's primary responsibility is not communication. It is survival. Long before it cares about fluency, clarity, or self-expression, it cares about keeping you safe. And at some point in your life, your brain learned that speaking English is risky. Maybe you were corrected publicly. Maybe someone laughed at your pronunciation. Maybe a teacher made you feel small. Maybe you compared yourself to fluent speakers and felt embarrassed. Even one uncomfortable experience is enough for the brain to form an association. From that moment on, your brain quietly labeled speaking English as a threat. So now, whenever you try to speak, your brain doesn't ask, "Do you know the words?" It asks a much more powerful question. Is this safe? If the answer feels uncertain, your brain activates its protection system. This is why your heart rate increases. This is why your breathing changes. This is why your thoughts shut down. Your brain is not blocking English. It is blocking danger. This reaction is automatic. You don't choose it. And that's why telling yourself to relax never works. Fear does not respond to logic. Fear responds to patterns. Every time you stay silent, your brain receives confirmation. It says, "Good choice. We avoided embarrassment." And with every avoided sentence, the belief becomes stronger. Silence starts to feel like relief. Speaking starts to feel like risk. Over time, this creates a silent habit. You begin answering with fewer words. You stop sharing opinions. You avoid conversations that require explanation. You let others speak while you nod. And slowly, without realizing it, your world in English becomes smaller. This shrinking has nothing to do with ability. It is a learned safety behavior. Another powerful reason your brain freezes is mental translation. When you try to speak, you often run everything through a slow internal process. You think in your native language first, then you translate, then you check grammar, then you search for better vocabulary, then you worry about pronunciation. By the time you are ready to speak, your brain is overloaded. This overload triggers panic, and panic shuts systems down. Fluent speakers do not translate. They react. They respond with whatever language is available in the moment. The sentence may not be perfect, but it moves forward. You are not freezing because you are incapable. You are freezing because you are trying to control too much at once. Speaking is a physical act, not a mental puzzle. The more you try to solve it in your head, the harder it becomes to execute with your mouth. There is another hidden reason your brain resists speaking: identity pressure. For many learners, English becomes tied to self-worth. Speaking well feels like proof of intelligence. Speaking poorly feels like failure. This turns every sentence into a judgment of who you are, not just what you're saying. That pressure is unbearable for the brain, so it chooses the safest option: silence. To move past this, you must separate English from your identity. Language is not who you are. Language is a tool, and tools are meant to be used, not admired. When you speak English, your goal is not correctness. Your goal is transfer of meaning. If the other person understands you, communication succeeded. Everything else is extra. This is why short sentences are so powerful. They reduce risk. They reduce pressure. They keep you in motion. I think so. Maybe. I'm not sure. Let me try to explain. These sentences may feel simple, but they are bridges. They prevent your brain from shutting down completely. They tell your nervous system, "I'm speaking, but I'm safe." The more often you use these bridges, the calmer your brain becomes. Your brain learns from repetition, not intention. You cannot think your way out of fear. You must act your way out. This is why silent study often increases anxiety. You understand more, but you practice less. The gap between knowledge and action grows wider, and the wider the gap, the more intimidating speaking feels. Think of it like driving. You can study traffic rules for years, But the first time you sit behind the wheel, fear appears. Not because you are stupid, but because your brain has no experience driving. Speaking English works the same way. You must give your brain safe, repeated experiences of speaking without consequences. Talking to yourself. Describing your surroundings. Reacting out loud to videos. These moments are not practice for English. They are therapy for fear. Each time you speak and nothing bad happens, your brain updates its belief. I spoke. I survived. That sentence slowly rewrites everything. Fear does not disappear instantly. It fades through exposure. Confidence does not arrive suddenly. It grows quietly. If you wait until fear is gone, you will never speak. But if you speak while fear is present, fear loses its authority. Your brain freezes because it is protecting you from imagined danger. Your job is not to fight it, but to gently retrain it. Speak short. Speak often. Speak without judgment. Because the brain always adapts to what you repeat. Repeat silence, and fear becomes permanent. Repeat speech, and fluency becomes inevitable. In the next segment, you will see how the myth of perfect English keeps this fear alive, and how letting go of perfection is the turning point that unlocks real, natural speech. Segment 3. The myth of perfect English that is quietly destroying your fluency. One of the most harmful beliefs English learners carry is the idea of perfect English. It sounds innocent at first, even responsible. I just want to speak correctly. I want to avoid mistakes. I don't want to sound wrong. But this belief is not helping you. It is slowly silencing you. Because the moment you decide that English must be perfect before it is spoken, you create a condition that can never be satisfied. Perfect English does not exist. Not in real life. Not among native speakers. Not even among educated professionals. Listen carefully to how native speakers talk. They interrupt themselves. They restart sentences. They change direction mid-thought. They forget words. They use fillers. They break grammar rules constantly. And yet, communication continues. Why? Because fluency is not about correctness. Fluency is about flow. But learners are taught to worship accuracy. So instead of flowing, they freeze. Perfection becomes a filter that blocks every sentence. Before you speak, you ask yourself, is this the right tense? Is this the best word? Is my sentence structured properly? And by the time you finish checking, the moment has passed. Someone else speaks. The conversation moves on, and you stay silent. Again. Perfection feels safe because it promises protection from embarrassment. But in reality, it creates something worse. Paralysis. As long as you are chasing perfect English, you will always feel behind. Because perfection is a moving target. Every time you learn something new, the standard rises. You learn a new grammar rule. Now you're afraid of breaking it. You learn a new word. Now you feel pressure to use it correctly. Instead of freedom, you gain tension. And tension is the enemy of speech. Here is a truth that may feel uncomfortable at first. Fluency grows faster when you allow yourself to be wrong. Mistakes are not obstacles. They are feedback. Every wrong sentence teaches your brain something real. Every corrected word sticks better because it was used, not memorized. But when you avoid mistakes, you also avoid learning. Think about this deeply. If mistakes were truly dangerous, children would never become fluent. But children make more mistakes than anyone, and they learn the fastest. Why? Because they don't attach meaning to mistakes. They don't say, "I am bad at language." They say, "I'm trying." Adults attach identity to errors. One mistake becomes proof. Proof that they are not good enough. Proof that they should stay quiet. This is where perfection becomes toxic. It turns language into self-judgment. You stop expressing thoughts. You stop sharing opinions. You stop participating. Not because you don't care, but because you care too much. You care so much about sounding good that you stop sounding at all. Another reason perfection kills fluency is that it shifts your focus inward. Instead of listening to the conversation, you listen to your own thoughts. Instead of reacting, you analyze. Instead of connecting, you monitor. This inward focus disconnects you from the moment. Speech is social. It requires attention outward. But perfection pulls you inward, into your head, where fear grows. This is why conversations feel exhausting. You are not just speaking. You are judging, correcting, translating, and evaluating at the same time. No wonder your brain shuts down. Fluent speakers are not better thinkers. They are lighter speakers. They allow sentences to exist without controlling them. They trust that meaning will adjust itself. And here is something important to understand. People do not remember your grammar. They remember your energy. They remember whether you were clear. They remember whether you were engaged. They remember whether you were present. Nobody leaves a conversation thinking, "Wow, that person used the wrong tense." They leave thinking, "That person was interesting. That person was kind. That person was clear." Perfection is invisible to listeners, but silence is very visible. If you want to speak fluently, you must make a decision. You must choose communication over correctness. This does not mean grammar is useless. Grammar is a tool for refinement, not a gatekeeper. You learn grammar to improve speech, not to block it. Use grammar after speaking, not before. Speak first, reflect later. That is how fluency develops naturally. Another dangerous side of perfection is comparison. You compare your English to native speakers, to YouTubers, to confident colleagues, and you forget one simple fact. You are comparing your beginning to someone else's middle. You do not see their early mistakes. You do not hear their broken sentences. You only see the final result. Perfection creates unrealistic expectations, and unrealistic expectations create disappointment. Disappointment leads to silence. To break this cycle, you must redefine success. Success is not speaking perfectly. Success is staying in the conversation. If you can continue speaking, even imperfectly, you are winning. Short sentences count, simple words count, pauses count. I don't know the word. I'll say it another way. Let me explain differently. These are fluent behaviors. Fluency is flexibility, not polish. The moment you allow yourself to be imperfect, something powerful happens. Your body relaxes. Your breathing slows. Your thoughts flow faster. Because fear leaves when control loosens. You stop fighting language, and language starts working with you. This is why many learners suddenly improve when they stop trying so hard. They didn't magically learn more English. They simply stopped blocking what they already knew. If you remember one thing from this segment, remember this. Perfect English is not your goal. Expressed English is. Your voice does not need to be flawless. It needs to be active. Every time you choose expression over perfection, you move closer to fluency. And in the next segment, you will learn the most important rule of all, why you must speak before you feel ready, and how that single decision changes everything. Segment 4. Speak before you feel ready. The rule that changes everything. There is a moment every English learner waits for. A moment they believe will arrive one day. The moment when they finally feel ready to speak. Ready means confident. Ready means calm. Ready means no fear. Ready means the right words appear naturally. But that moment never comes. Not because you are failing, but because readiness does not work the way you think it does. Readiness is not something you feel first. Readiness is something that is created by action. If you wait to feel ready before speaking, you will wait forever. This is the rule that separates fluent speakers from silent learners. Fluent speakers speak before they feel ready. They don't wait for confidence. They let confidence catch up later. Most learners do the opposite. They wait for confidence to appear first. But confidence is not a cause. Confidence is an effect. It is built from evidence. Every time you speak and nothing bad happens, your brain records proof. I did it. I survived. I can do this again. That proof is what slowly becomes confidence. Without action, there is no proof. Without proof, there is no confidence. This is why motivation alone never works. You can feel inspired. You can feel excited. You can promise yourself you will speak tomorrow. But when the moment arrives, fear returns. Because fear is older than motivation. Fear is wired deeper. The only thing stronger than fear is experience. And experience only comes from doing. When you speak before you feel ready, something important happens in your body. Your nervous system learns that discomfort is not danger. Your brain learns that mistakes are survivable. Your identity shifts from learner to speaker. This shift is everything. Because once you see yourself as someone who speaks, you stop asking for permission. Speaking before you feel ready does not mean being reckless. It means being willing. Willing to sound slow. Willing to pause. Willing to correct yourself mid-sentence. Willing to continue even when the sentence isn't perfect. This willingness keeps you moving. Movement is what creates fluency. Staying still creates fear. Most learners think fluency is about long, complex sentences. It's not. Fluency is about continuity. Can you keep going even when you get stuck? Can you rephrase instead of stopping? Can you use simple words to express complex ideas? These are fluent behaviors. Speaking before you feel ready trains these skills. You learn how to recover. You learn how to adapt. You learn how to stay in the conversation. And those skills cannot be learned through study. They can only be learned through use. There is another reason speaking before readiness works so well. It breaks the habit of mental rehearsal. When you rehearse too much, you become dependent on preparation. You feel safe only when sentences are planned. But real conversations do not allow planning. They move fast. They change direction. They interrupt. If you rely on preparation, you will always feel behind. Speaking before you feel ready forces you to react. Reaction builds speed. Speed builds flow. This is why people who just talk often sound more fluent than people who know more English. They are not smarter. They are simply less controlled. They allow language to happen instead of forcing it. Another powerful shift happens when you stop waiting for readiness. You stop treating English as a performance. You stop imagining an audience. You stop judging yourself from the outside. You become present. Presence makes speech natural. When you are present, you listen better. When you listen better, you respond more naturally. When you respond naturally, fluency emerges. This is the hidden secret. Fluency is not built by focusing on yourself. It is built by focusing on the moment. Speaking before you feel ready pushes you into that moment. Now let's be clear about one thing. Speaking before readiness does not mean speaking a lot. It means speaking consistently. One sentence a day is enough. One honest reaction. One opinion expressed out loud. Consistency matters more than intensity. 5 minutes every day beats 1 hour once a week. Your brain learns through repetition. Small, daily acts of speaking slowly rewire fear. You stop seeing English as a threat. You start seeing it as normal. And when something becomes normal, it stops being scary. There will still be awkward moments. There will still be mistakes. There will still be days when you feel blocked. That does not mean you are failing. That means you are practicing. Progress is not smooth. It is uneven. Fluent speakers did not move forward in a straight line. They moved forward by continuing despite discomfort. And you can do the same. Every time you choose to speak instead of wait, you take one step out of silence. Every time you open your mouth before your mind is ready, you weaken fear. And over time, something surprising happens. You start feeling ready after you speak, not before. That is the truth nobody tells learners. Readiness is created by movement. So stop asking yourself if you are ready. Ask yourself a better question. Am I willing to try? If the answer is yes, that is enough. In the next segment, you will learn how to practice speaking without pressure, without apps, and without turning your life upside down, using simple daily habits that fit naturally into your routine. Segment 5. How to practice speaking. English without pressure, apps, or fear. Most English learners believe that fluency requires special tools. They think they need expensive apps, professional teachers, perfect schedules, or long study sessions. They believe that without these things, real improvement is impossible. This belief quietly keeps them stuck. The truth is much simpler. Fluency does not grow from tools. Fluency grows from daily interaction with language. And that interaction does not need to be formal. In fact, the more formal and structured practice becomes, the more pressure it creates. Pressure makes you tense. Tension blocks speech. This is why many learners study for years but still struggle to talk. Real fluency is built in low-pressure moments. Moments where mistakes do not matter. Moments where nobody is judging. Moments where the only goal is expression. This is where most learners go wrong. They practice English in their head, but not with their voice. They read, listen, and understand, but they rarely speak. Understanding feels productive. Speaking feels risky. But without speaking, fluency cannot grow. To practice without pressure, you must remove evaluation from the process. That means no tests, no scores, no corrections during speech. Correction can come later. Speaking must come first. One of the most powerful practices is self-talk. Talking to yourself out loud may feel strange at first, but it is one of the safest ways to train your speaking reflex. There is no audience. There is no judgment. There is no consequence. Describe what you are doing. Explain your plans. React to your thoughts. You don't need full sentences. You don't need correct grammar. You just need movement. Another powerful habit is reacting out loud to content you already consume. You already watch videos. You already scroll social media. You already listen to podcasts. The difference is this: instead of staying silent, respond. Pause the video and say what you think. Agree or disagree. Summarize what you heard. Ask a question out loud. This turns passive input into active output. And output is what builds fluency. You do not need to repeat sentences like a robot. Repetition builds pronunciation, but reaction builds fluency. When you react, you are forced to think and speak in real time. That pressure is mild, safe, and productive. Another important habit is narrating simple things. Explain what you see around you. Describe objects. Describe people. Describe situations. This may sound basic, but it trains something critical: speed. Fluency is not about advanced vocabulary. It is about being able to access words quickly. Simple descriptions build that speed. You may also practice rephrasing. Say something once, then say it another way. This builds flexibility. Flexibility is a core fluency skill. If you forget a word, don't stop. Go around it. Use simpler words. Explain instead of freezing. This teaches your brain that getting stuck is not the end. Most learners freeze because they believe one missing word ruins the sentence. It doesn't. Fluent speakers constantly rephrase. They don't stop when they forget a word. They adapt. You must train this habit. Another pressure-free method is thinking in English without forcing translation. You don't need to eliminate your native language, but you can reduce dependency on translation by labeling thoughts in English. Simple thoughts are enough. I'm tired. I need coffee. It's too hot today. These thoughts build familiarity. Familiarity reduces fear. You can also create small speaking rituals. 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes at night. No topic, no structure, just speaking. Consistency matters more than quality. It is better to speak badly every day than to speak well once a week. Your brain adapts to frequency. Daily speaking normalizes English in your life. Another important part of pressure-free practice is accepting imperfection. If you practice only when you feel good, you will practice rarely. Some days you will feel slow. Some days words will not come easily. That is normal. Practice anyway. Fluency is built on ordinary days, not motivated days. It is also important to stop measuring progress emotionally. Some days you will feel fluent. Some days you will feel stuck. Feelings are not reliable indicators of progress. Progress happens quietly. Your sentences become faster. Your pauses shorten. Your fear weakens. But you may not notice it day to day. This is why consistency matters. Another mistake learners make is waiting for real conversations to practice. You do not need real people to train speaking. You need real use. Talking to yourself is real use. Reacting to content is real use. Explaining things out loud is real use. These habits prepare you for conversations. Then, when real conversations happen, your brain is not shocked. It has experience, and experience reduces fear. The goal of practice is not perfection. The goal is familiarity. When English becomes familiar, it becomes comfortable. When it becomes comfortable, it becomes fluent. In the next segment, you will learn how confidence is built, sentence by sentence, and why confidence is not something you wait for, but something you create through repeated action. Segment 6. How confidence is built, sentence by sentence. Most English learners believe confidence is something you either have or you don't. They look at fluent speakers and assume those people were born confident. They believe confidence comes from talent, personality, or natural ability. Because of this belief, they wait. They wait until they feel confident enough to speak. That waiting is what keeps confidence away. Confidence is not a personality trait. Confidence is a result of experience. It is built slowly, quietly, through repeated proof. Every time you speak a sentence and nothing bad happens, you collect evidence. That evidence may feel small, but it is powerful. It tells your brain, I can do this. Confidence is not created by motivation. Motivation fades. Confidence is created by survival. You speak. You make a mistake. Nothing terrible happens. That sequence is what builds confidence. But most learners never complete that sequence. They stop at fear. They imagine the mistake. They imagine judgment. They imagine embarrassment. And because the imagination feels real, they stay silent. Silence protects you from imagined danger, but it also prevents real growth. Confidence requires exposure. This is why people who speak often, even with poor grammar, appear confident. They are not fearless. They are familiar with discomfort. They have learned that discomfort is temporary. When you avoid speaking, discomfort feels overwhelming. When you face it repeatedly, discomfort becomes manageable. This is how confidence grows. Another mistake learners make is waiting for big breakthroughs. They believe confidence will suddenly appear one day. It doesn't. Confidence grows sentence by sentence. One small sentence spoken today, another tomorrow, another the next day. Individually, they feel insignificant. Together, they reshape your identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who is learning English and start seeing yourself as someone who speaks English. Identity change is the deepest form of progress. Once your identity shifts, behavior becomes natural. You no longer ask, "Should I speak?" You simply speak. This is why consistency is more important than quality. Speaking badly often builds more confidence than speaking perfectly once. Perfection does not teach your brain anything new. Survival does. Every time you recover from a mistake, your confidence grows. When you forget a word and explain it another way, your confidence grows. When you pause and continue instead of stopping, your confidence grows. When you correct yourself and keep going, your confidence grows. These moments teach resilience. Fluency is not about never getting stuck. It is about knowing how to continue when you do. Another important truth is that confidence does not remove fear. It changes your relationship with it. Confident speakers still feel nervous sometimes. They just don't obey the fear. They speak anyway. Fear loses power when it is ignored repeatedly. Your brain learns that fear is not a command. It is a suggestion, and suggestions can be declined. This is why confidence feels calm. Not because fear is gone, but because it is no longer in control. Many learners sabotage confidence by self-labeling. "I'm bad at English." "I'm shy." "I'm not good at speaking." These labels feel harmless, but they become instructions. Your brain listens to the words you repeat. Instead of labeling yourself, describe actions. "I'm practicing English." "I'm getting better." "I spoke today." Action-based language supports confidence. Identity-based judgment destroys it. Confidence also grows faster when you stop comparing yourself to others. Comparison creates false standards. You compare your everyday English to someone else's polished performance. You forget that you are seeing their result, not their process. Everyone starts messy. The only comparison that matters is this: are you speaking more than before? If the answer is yes, you are progressing. Another powerful confidence builder is acceptance. Accept that some days will feel bad. Accept that some conversations will feel awkward. Accept that some sentences will fail. This acceptance removes pressure. Pressure slows you down. Relaxation speeds you up. When you stop demanding perfection from yourself, your confidence stabilizes. You trust yourself to handle whatever happens. Confidence is not believing you will speak perfectly. Confidence is believing you will cope. That belief changes everything. And the more you cope successfully, the stronger confidence becomes. Over time, you will notice something important. You start speaking without thinking as much. You stop preparing sentences in advance. You react naturally. This is not because your English suddenly improved dramatically. It is because your confidence removed mental blocks. Confidence clears the path. Language flows through it. This is why confidence is not optional for fluency. It is foundational. But confidence cannot be studied. It must be experienced. You cannot read your way into confidence. You cannot watch your way into confidence. You must speak your way into confidence. One sentence at a time. In the final segment, you will bring everything together. You will understand how your identity shifts when you stop hiding, how English becomes a tool instead of a fear, and how to continue growing without burning out. or losing motivation. Segment 7. The final shift. From silent learner to natural speaker. There is a moment that quietly changes everything for an English learner. It does not happen in a classroom. It does not happen after finishing a book. It does not happen when you memorize more vocabulary. It happens when you stop hiding. At some point, you realize that English is no longer the enemy. The enemy was the silence you built around it. For a long time, English felt heavy. Every sentence felt like a test. Every conversation felt like exposure. Every mistake felt personal. So you stayed careful. You stayed quiet. You stayed inside your head. But now, something is different. You understand that fluency was never blocked by lack of knowledge. It was blocked by fear, control, and self-judgment. And once you see that clearly, you cannot unsee it. You realize that English does not demand perfection. It does not require permission. It does not ask you to be someone else. English only asks one thing: use me. When you stop treating English like a performance, it becomes a tool. When it becomes a tool, it becomes light. When it becomes light, it becomes usable. This is the final shift. You move from learning English to living in English. Living in English does not mean thinking perfectly. It means responding honestly. It means saying what you can, with what you have, in the moment you're in. This shift changes your identity. You stop calling yourself bad at English. You stop labeling yourself as shy or weak. You stop apologizing before speaking. You become a person who speaks, not because you are flawless, but because you are willing. Willingness is the true foundation of fluency. Once you are willing, progress becomes automatic. You notice small changes. You respond faster. You pause less. You recover quickly when you get stuck. You don't panic when a word disappears. You explain it another way. You don't freeze when you make a mistake. You continue. These are not small wins. These are signs that your brain has changed its relationship with English. English no longer triggers danger. It triggers action. And this is where long-term growth happens. Fluency is not something you finish. It is something you maintain. Just like physical fitness, it grows through regular use. You don't need intensity. You need continuity. Speaking a little every day keeps fluency alive. Some days will feel smooth. Some days will feel slow. Neither one defines you. What defines you is whether you continue. There will be moments when doubt returns. That is normal. Fear does not disappear forever. It fades, returns, and fades again. The difference now is that fear no longer controls you. You have experience. You know that you can speak even when you feel uncomfortable. You know that mistakes do not destroy you. You know that silence is no longer safer than expression. This knowledge gives you freedom. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You speak in imperfect moments. And imperfect moments are where real communication happens. You also stop chasing native-like perfection. You understand that clarity matters more than accent. Presence matters more than polish. Connection matters more than correctness. You allow your English to sound like your English. This acceptance unlocks authenticity. People respond to authenticity. They don't care that you paused. They don't care that you searched for a word. They care that you were real. Once you accept this, conversations become easier. Not because English changed, but because you did. You no longer see English as something that judges you. You see it as something that serves you. It helps you explain. It helps you connect. It helps you express thoughts that were once trapped. And that is powerful. Because language is not just about words. It is about identity. When you speak, you exist. For too long, you existed quietly. Now, you choose differently. You choose expression over silence. You choose progress over perfection. You choose action over fear. This does not mean you will never feel nervous again. It means nervousness will no longer stop you. You will speak even when your voice shakes. You will speak even when sentences are messy. You will speak even when you are unsure. And every time you do, you strengthen the speaker within you. This is how fluency becomes permanent. Not through pressure, not through obsession, but through permission. Permission to be human. Permission to learn publicly. Permission to speak before you feel ready. If you remember one thing from this entire journey, remember this. Fluency is not about sounding perfect. Fluency is about staying present and continuing anyway. You don't need to be fearless. You need to be consistent. Speak today. Speak tomorrow. Speak imperfectly and slowly, without drama, without stress, without force. English will stop being something you think about and start being something you use. That is the moment you stop being a silent learner and become a natural speaker. And once that happens, there is no going back.